as we get started, let me ask you a question. If you could think of a couple of things that you'll remember most about 2024, what would they be? For me, two things come to mind. Number one, I wrote a book, Pharmacist Podcaster, a podcast planning guide for pharmacy professionals. So proud of that. But the second thing is that I lost a dear friend, Dr. Asha Pai Bohannon. If you didn't know Asha, she was one in a million. She was a pharmacist, a wife, a mom of two boys, a daughter, a sister, an aunt, an entrepreneur, an author, a video podcaster, a leader, a mentor, a role model, a friend, and so much more to so many others. She graduated at the top of her PharmD class in 2002 from UNC Chapel Hill, and she made an impact on the profession of pharmacy. Grief is a tricky thing, my friends. When it is fresh, like when Asha died in June, I had a lot of feelings. Some of them were disbelief, sadness, confusion, not really knowing what to do or say. And now, 6 months later, I still think of Asha a lot, and I still have a lot of feelings. But the feeling that comes up most as 2024 comes to a close is that I don't want to forget her, ever. The end of the year is a great time to reflect, as you probably know. As 2024 comes to a close in just a few days, I wanted to put a spotlight on my unforgettable friend, Dr. Asha Pai Bohannon. Hi, this is episode 308 of the Pharmacist Voice podcast. I am your host and Ohio pharmacist, Kim Newlove. Today's episode is a little different kind of an episode. I've got an interview with Dr. Asha Pai Bohannon's sister, Nesha Pai. Nesha is an entrepreneur and CPA from Charlotte, North Carolina. During our interview, we walk down memory lane and we talk about Asha first. It is a really nice way to start an episode. But then Nesha will talk about the Dr. Asha Pai Scholarship for Excellence in Pharmacy. Nesha established the scholarship in conjunction with the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and the UNC Eshelman School of Pharmacy's PharmD program. Creating the scholarship gave Nesha a way to heal and to use the tragedy of Asha's unexpected death for good. To donate, go ahead and click the link in the show notes on thepharmacistvoice.com or visit go.unc.edu/Asha. That's go.unc.edu/ASHA. go.unc.edu/Asha. Now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Nesha Pai. Hi, Nesha. Welcome to the Pharmacist Voice podcast.
Kim, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here to talk about something very special to both of us.
Absolutely. We're talking about Dr. Asha Pai Bohannon today. What was Asha like growing up?
Well, first of all, it's interesting. We never called her Asha. We all had nicknames for her. And my brother and I had this nickname, DB, like as in DB, the letters. And I have no idea where that came from. But that is what we called her all the way up until the end. And we never called her Asha. She was a hard worker, a loving, loving child. She was always happy and joyful and wanting to be around the family and bring the family together. And she got into it wasn't known as DE&I back then, but she got into a program with the EPA and Shaw University, which is a primarily Black college in Raleigh, for a program for kids who were in middle school. I believe she was 12 years old to do this program sponsored by the EPA. And she got paid for it. Don't ask me what she did because she was super smart and it was about science and all of that, which I was not. So she had been working since she was 12 years old. So a hard worker, super smart, just the bright light that you saw her when you met her many years later.
Now, who's older? Are you the big sister or is she?
So my brother and I are twins, and we are 7 years older than her. So she wasn't an oopsie per se, but she was not planned. She was the blessing that came into our lives that we did not know about. And we were so excited because we were 7 when she was born. So as you can imagine, we were capable of helping take care of her, right? And look at her as our little doll, our China doll, our plaything. And, my brother and I would always do crazy things with her. Like we got in trouble a lot for doing those crazy things. But one example is we put her in a laundry basket and pushed her down the stairs thinking, hey, this is kind of cool. She was open to letting us do anything we wanted to her. And that is what I remember about her. She just wanted so desperately to be this awesome little sister to us that if we wanted to experiment on her, she would actually let us.
How old was she when she went down the stairs?
2. I'd say 2 because we were probably like 9 or so. And things like that, we would be like, let's see. It's almost like if you remember that Life commercial, like Mikey will eat it. But like, what can we do with Asha? She'll say yes, she'll do it. And she was also always jovial in just wanting to participate with whatever we had going on, always wanting to be around our friends and what we were doing. And she let me play dress up with her. Like I wanted to dress her up as an Indian princess. And one of a very bad memory for me is where I'm not proud of is, when she was coming of age and, we're hairy as Indian women. And so, she was starting to get a little facial hair and I was like, I can wax your mustache off for you. And needless to say, I gave her some pretty bad burns on her face that she never let me live down. And so she was just that person. She was like, I'm open to whatever my older brother and sister have in store for me, even if it wasn't always great.
She's always been a joyful participant in pretty much anything we've ever been in together, like metapreneurs, mixers, meetups. Oh, we had some accountability group action going on, and she was happy to show up, even if she was watching soccer practice or, like her kids' activities, and she was just waiting for them to be done. She's like, okay, I'll hop on that Zoom call with y'all. And there she was. She was a joyful participant. Nesha, what was it like when she wanted to go into pharmacy? Were you supportive of that, or was that a surprise? I mean, what was that choice like for you guys as a family?
We knew she was super smart. She was great at science, great at sort of that part of the brain and world. And my brother was the same. So they connected that way. And when she was going through school, we were like, you can be a doctor. You could be, something in the medical field. And I think she took a liking to pharmacy specifically because my maternal grandmother passed away from diabetes at a young age, and she watched my mom struggle with it for years. And I think she wanted a way to help my mother and help people who had diabetes. And so it was a natural step for her to go into pharmacy. And then pursue her doctorate as well in pharmacy to have that specialty. So we weren't surprised. We were supportive. We were like, you're going to be great at this. And she was. She graduated at the top of her class in Chapel Hill, and not only in her undergrad, but in the PharmD program.
That's awesome. I'm glad that she took something that was painful for her to watch, like your mom struggling with diabetes, and her mom missing her own mom because she had died from diabetes, and find some purpose in that. I'm a huge fan of that whole pain to purpose theme. I think it's so powerful. It can get you through 6 to 8 years of pharmacy school. It's very powerful. Were you there on graduation day?
We were. And at that time, gosh, I was married and had a baby, which she was the first grandchild in the family. And my son, she was a second mom to my son. We all could be there to celebrate her. And that was so special.
I'm happy to hear you were there for that moment and you remember it fondly.
I do. Yeah, I do.
Glad to hear it. And then when she went off into the world and she became a pharmacist, started practicing, how proud of her were you?
Oh, I mean, incredibly. She had incredible internship opportunities. I know on the clinical side, she went to Johnson City, Tennessee for the year when she graduated. And then she got out into the world and worked at a local boutique pharmacy in Raleigh for a long time. And her biggest dream, though, was to find a husband, a good partner, and have kids. She wanted to have a family more so than anyone else in my family. And she modeled that after my mother. And she's like, I want to be a mom. And so when she met Eric, her husband, it was a little later in her life. She was 30, which in the Indian standards, you're an old maid. And back then she had we put so much pressure on ourselves that if you weren't married by 25, and now I'm like, my son's 25. I'm like, no, you don't want to get married right now. But that was her goal, is I want to be a mother and I want to be a wife. And she accomplished that on top of accomplishing her pharmacy career, right? And maintaining that and keeping it going.
Yes, it's so hard to have the work-life balance or the work-family balance. And I know that was something that she kind of struggled with, and one of the reasons that she wanted to leave the retail setting. And she also was worried that she was making people sicker instead of better. So I know that she had some concerns, and those are all valid. Nesha, were you in the wedding?
I was in the wedding, though she had a beautiful Hindu ceremony. And that's a great question. We don't have like maids of honor or things like that, but I was there as her sister, and my brother and I were in the wedding in terms of being her attendants and being by her side. And her wedding is something that was so beautiful and special. And in fact, sitting across from my office is a portrait of she and I on her wedding day that she gifted me. It was a special memory.
That's awesome. I think it's interesting when people get married a little bit later in life, so no judgment there, but you get to see who they are before they get married, and then you get to see what they do with marriage and their career as they move forward. What was it like when she started having her children?
She was such an incredible mom. I think that she put a lot of pressure on herself to be, as we all do. Women, I think, we're kind of guilty of this, where we want to be the perfect mom, the perfect wife, the perfect worker for our patients, the perfect everything. And I just remember her putting a lot of pressure on herself that really didn't subside, right? No matter what we said to her, no matter what her friends said to her, she had placed such a expectation of perfectionism, no matter how great she was. I mean, she threw the most beautiful birthday parties, the most beautiful holidays, and yet I never felt that she felt that she was good enough or that it was good enough. And that was a theme I felt that carried through.
You're right about women being hard on themselves. I am a woman. I'm guilty
Yes.
of this too. One of the things that I think kind of broke that for me was improv comedy training when I was in audiobook narration training. I know it's kind of like a funny comment to make, but I learned that it's okay to take risks and fail. And sometimes it turns out funny, or it ends up having the desired result. So anybody listening to this that also struggles with perfectionism, I just want you to really hear what we're saying. It's okay to take risks and fail as long as nobody's life is at risk, because something really awesome could happen because you took a risk and you tried something.
Absolutely. Yeah, I believe in that. And, we come from a culture and a family, I think, that sort of emanated that. And so I can see why and where, she got that for sure. She excelled at everything she did, whether or not she felt that she did.
Nesha, when Asha started her business, the Pai Wellness Group, what'd you think about that?
I thought it was cool because I had been an entrepreneur now for 13 years. My brother has been an entrepreneur longer. And we don't come from a family of entrepreneurs. So I thought it was cool because my brother and I have very similar personalities. We're extroverted, we are outgoing, we make connections. And I thought, man, this is a natural step for her to do. And it gave her something more of purpose, because I find a lot of women, and I know this for myself, I was more than a mom, right? You're more than a mom. And she found what it was that made her more than a mom. And she was great at it. In fact, I started going to her. Like I have this void in the sense of not just that she's my sister, but she became my medical confidant. So any drug, anything a doctor said to me, I would immediately call her and be like, hey, what do you think about this drug? What do you think about what this doctor's saying to me? She was so natural at this role in her Pi Wellness Group, venture.
Thank you for sharing that with me. I met her kind of after she had the idea for it and she was developing it. So I saw her at least annually, but then I saw her, I interviewed her on my podcast darn near every year, and then, accountability groups and all kinds of other things. But for you, I mean, you got to see this transition from this little baby that, was your plaything, and this little girl that you sent down the stairs in a laundry basket. And you got to see her grow up and do these things, this middle school experience, graduating from college, getting the first job, getting married, becoming a mom, becoming an entrepreneur. I mean, I know that you have seen some things that I have not seen, but some of the things that I have seen is when she became an author and when she started coaching. So let's talk about some of that. When your sister published her first book, what'd you think of that?
I was so proud of her. I was so proud of her. Um, my sister's she's risk. Is it averse? It's when you're not as risky. Like I'm the black sheep, like, let's push boundaries. My sister is more of the let's conform. So when she created this idea of Pi Wellness Group and then she wrote this book, I'm like, wow. I am so proud of you putting yourself out there, because that is putting yourself out there, right? When you write a book, it was like it opened the floodgates for her of confidence and what more can I do and who else can I impact?
And it's so validating when you get Amazon reviews and people buy the book and they reach out to you and they ask you for help.
Right.
And I know she had all that happening. And then she brought Eric to Metapreneurs back in 2019. And Eric and Asha sat at a table and thought, we could help other pharmacists do this too, start a business. And
Yes.
when she started doing that, I'm sure that she ran that by you and you talked to her as a sister. What did you think of that? I mean, how did that hit you?
I thought that was fabulous. I said, you are onto something. You're onto something. And um, you've created a successful model. And why not share it with everyone else in your industry and also monetize it to grow your business? So I just thought it was so creative of her to come up with something that, again, was so out of the box for who I knew her as, right? Like I knew her when I knew her, she was like, follow the rules. I'm going to get my W-2 job. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And now all of a sudden she's in this new space of creativity and no bars held, right? I'm going to go for all these different things. And so, I encouraged her to do that.
I love how supportive your family is. And I really like that Eric was on board with this because Eric was part of that with the coaching and the impact pharmacist and helping pharmacists start their businesses. I thought that was so unique. I would love to work with my husband. And I thought it was so cool when Eric and Asha got to do this thing together and be in videos together and have this self-paced online course together. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
And I know Eric's not on the show, but I mean, I'm I'm expecting that if he were here today, he would be like, that was one of the coolest things I ever got to do with my wife. Because not only was she a partner in life, she was a partner in business too.
Yeah. Yeah. And not many people can say that they can do that successfully. or do that at all, right? Like you said.
Right.
So,
And I think she really respected him in what he did with marketing and business because she learned so much from him and from what they wrote in their second book, which was Impact Pharmacist. They wrote that together. And I feel like they really were 50-50 because it seemed like every other chapter was Eric, every other chapter was Asha. And it was just really cool to see that synergy and what they could do together.
yeah. And what's great about the books is this is going to live on forever, right? It is one of her part of her legacy, and she created something that will live forever, and that to me is amazing.
I'll put links to both of those books in the show notes on thepharmacistvoice.com.
Yeah.
Yes,
Great.
absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot that lives on. And now you have this scholarship that is to celebrate her memory, and then her memory can live on in the lives of all these students there at UNC Chapel Hill School of Pharmacy. Would you like to talk about the scholarship?
Yeah, thank you, Kim. I mean, when she passed away, I immediately went into what can I do to carry her legacy on mode. That was my mode. And, everyone grieves differently. And for me, it was like, I needed to create something that had her name on it, that carried her vision and her legacy on. And I was thinking of all these things. I was thinking diabetes, education, the association, like where can I make the most impact with her name? What would she want? It took me all the way back to UNC Chapel Hill because by her pursuing her PharmD program, she was able to be this person that could make such a huge impact in the world by using that degree. And wouldn't she want more people to follow her footsteps? And so that's why I chose the school. And when I went back to them, here's what's really interesting and unique about the scholarship, which is why it was a God wink, I should say an Asha wink, and that I knew I was in the right place because I contacted them I went to NC State on top of that, right? So they're probably like, wolf pack, stay away from us. But, I went to the school that I had no ties with, and I said, hey, my sister graduated from your PharmD program almost 20 years ago. Her name is Asha Pai. That was her maiden name. And I said, I want to start a scholarship in her name. Do you guys offer that? Do you offer it in the PharmD program? And they said yes, or yes, we do. And they told me the minimum. And I was like, well, I don't have that. And I didn't want to do a fundraise. It's just something that I wanted to give. So I said, here's what I do have. And I said, will that still be viable? And the president of the foundation came back to me and she said, hey, I looked her up and she made quite an impression that year. She was very high up in her class. And I want to do this for you. I want you to be able to do this, even though you don't meet the minimum. And I said, oh my God, thank you. And I got another call from her after that call. And she said to me, hey, we want to use Asha's scholarship in a beta program that will match dollar for dollar on your initial funding to get you to the minimum. And I looked up in the sky and I said, thank you, because I knew that was her. And I knew that that was where she wanted me to do this thing that I wanted to do for her and honor her name. And I just remember getting that call and I started bawling. I was driving on my way back from Raleigh and I thought, this is where she wants me to do it so that we can help other pharmacy students who may not be able to have the resources to pursue their PharmD. And she will now be able to do so through her name and her scholarship.
I love what you've done. And I love that your sister inspired you. It was from a place of love that you created this. And it's going to be around for a while, which is good because I think we need to continue to read her name on things and speak her name because I personally feel that people are not really gone until their name is no longer spoken or read.
This is exactly why I did it. And I have the same belief as you. And it's something that I wanted. And they're too young to understand right now. But it's something I wanted to gift her sons when they get old enough to steward it, something that they can have to share with their children and their potential spouses. And so I was thinking long term because I wanted something that her boys could have and be proud of and knowing.
Do they know about the scholarship yet?
They do, but I don't know if they fully understand it or what it is and the impact that it's going to make. Being at I don't even know what number of pharmacy school it is, but a top tiered university. They don't understand that quite yet, but it's there for when they do.
I appreciate that. I hope this podcast episode's still floating around so they can listen to it and hear the stories of Aunt Nesha talking about their mom and how important the profession of pharmacy was to her and what an impact she made on it. I love that you keep reusing the word impact because that was Asha's word. She always, to me, was the impact pharmacist. That's what she really wanted to do, make an impact.
And she did it.
And she did. For many years to come, this scholarship will be out there helping pharmacy students so that they can know who she was and benefit from her scholarship.
Yes.
Yep, and speak her name and read her name and be remembered.
Yes.
Absolutely. I will put a link to the scholarship in the show notes, but would you like to talk about the link at all or how somebody could find it?
Yes. I hope people go to the link in your show notes. It's a very easy link to follow. It's hard to find if I were to just say go to the UNC Chapel Hill School of Pharmacy Foundation page. But once you click on the link, it takes you right to her scholarship and you can donate in whatever amount you want. How they gift it to the student. So they have certain criteria that I have, input, in what I think Asha would want. So they'll use this set of criteria each year and pick a student who will be gifted a certain amount to go towards their PharmD education. And that is in perpetuity. So for as long as we keep the scholarship going, her name will always be spoken.
I love that. I love that. Way to go. Congratulations on successfully setting up this scholarship.
Thank you.
I have the full name of the scholarship in front of me here. It is the Dr. Asha Pai Scholarship for Excellence in Pharmacy. I think that's a very appropriate name. So definitely going to keep her name out there for a long time.
Thank you. Thank you for shining a light on that and for loving my sister as much as you've loved her.
It's been my pleasure. It's been a pleasure to know her. I can't imagine having not met her. Starting in 2018, that's when it all started. And I can't believe that there was ever an end, but I know that death parted us. And so that is a fact. But I will be playing my podcast episode that's a tribute to her every single June 7th so that I don't forget her. And I'm excited for you to continue your fundraising efforts to my audience. I would love it so much if you would donate to this scholarship, the Dr. Asha Pai Scholarship for Excellence in Pharmacy, whatever amount you feel called to. I donated $250 to it. If anybody wants to beat that, you go right ahead. And I'm sure that the students at UNC Chapel Hill School of Pharmacy will certainly appreciate that. As we start to wrap this up, Nesha, is there anything else you'd like to share? Any memories of Asha or anything else?
The last time I saw her was when I had gifted her a ticket to come see me in Paris. That was in March of this year. It was the last time I saw her, but I was able to tell her that I loved her and I was proud of her. And I told her that I would meet her in front of the Eiffel Tower again real soon.
I'm happy for you that you have those memories, and thank you for sharing that with me.
Yes.
Thank you for being here on the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. Take care, Nesha. Thanks again to Nesha Pai for being my guest today on the Pharmacist's Voice podcast, episode 308. 2024 has been a heck of a year. I hope to remember my friend Asha forever. I know her sister will remember her forever. And I'm really grateful that I got to know her even better through this conversation today with her sister, Nesha. That was so cool. I loved all the Asha stories, and I loved hearing about how Nesha honored Asha's legacy in the pharmacy world with the Dr. Asha Pai Scholarship for Excellence in Pharmacy. Love the name too. What a great sister. As I wrap this episode up, I want to offer you a way to get to know Asha better just in case you didn't know her during her time here on Earth. Maybe you're a scholarship applicant, or maybe you're finding this episode years later and you heard about Asha and you just want to know more about her. She was on this podcast as a guest 3 times. And I also recorded a solo episode to remember her after her death in June 2024. Links to all 4 episodes are in the show notes on thepharmacistvoice.com. As an alternative, if you just want to scroll through the podcast on your favorite app or on YouTube, look for episodes 9, 77, 169, and 283. To any of Asha's family who are listening to this, I know it's such a tragedy that she was taken from this world so soon. But I think of her often, and I think about if she were alive today, how would she want me to live my life? And it would be with joy and impact. So go forward and live your life with joy and impact. Thank you so much for listening to episode 308 of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. To read the show notes, go to thepharmacistvoice.com, click the podcast tab, and then find episode 308. In the show notes, you will find a link to donate to Asha's scholarship, links to both of her books, her social media links, and much, much more. Lots of links today. Everything you need is on thepharmacistvoice.com. If you know someone who needs to hear this episode or might like to donate to Asha's scholarship, please share this episode with them. And if you like this podcast, please subscribe to or follow the Pharmacist's Voice podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. Thank you so much for listening today. Take time to reflect on 2024 for your own life, and I will talk to you next week.